Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and we are coming at you right now with a brand new build. Well, actually not a brand new build. Everything, or nearly everything you're going to see for today's build was already available in the base game. However, at the time of recording, we are 1 week after the release of Wave 3 DLC, and this particular wave of DLC has given a couple of new tools and modes to provide better context for the build that we're about to talk about, which is going to be the Flash Fencer, but not just any Flash Fencer. We're going to be emphasizing crit recharge and evasion arts. That's right, evade tanking is back in a big ol' way, and the best part is Sena in her DLC actually gets a throwback costume meant to replicate the look of Brighid. She is back, baby, and she is super fun to play as you're going to see with the build that we have right now. It's not necessarily the most powerful build in the game by any means. In fact, there are many builds that are better for whatever purposes. That being said though, this build excels quite nicely whether you were soloing the Nopon Archsage's Gauntlet or just working as a very effective tank for your party. As you can see at the top right of the screen, none of my party members are defenders, and we want to keep it that way. Sena is the only tank that we need, and she does it super effectively by combining the Fraternal Badge and Protector's Pride abilities. We've been using this a lot, but it works so great over here. So I mentioned earlier that the recent DLC has given better context for this build that has already existed. I want to quickly go over that. The Lapidarist class really does deserve a video on its own, but quickly going over this one though, it's essentially just the Signifer, but dialed to 11. The Aureole and the Resonant Flag are, of course, Agnian Master Arts that can be combined with these really low cooldown, really easy to recharge through crit recharge. All of the abilities that are available from Agnian classes are wonderful as supports, but then if you put them in a Kavesi class, you can get these going really fast. As you can see over here, Aureole, Resonant Flag, all the buffs that you need. We also got the Ring of Roses, which you can stack onto into a single spot and really make things go even faster. And then of course there is Glittering Melody. You can inherit this from the Troubadour class. This just lets you refresh all of the arts of everyone in your party, letting everyone be exceptional at whatever their job is. So if you got someone that wants to launch and break people, they can do that very easily. In the case of Sena, she already is very good at reliably getting recharges for herself through the arts, which we'll talk about. But yeah, everything will move so smoothly, and that's the setup that we have for today. I got 2 Lapidarists. There is also the ability that enhances the build that we're talking about today, which is going to be Beaming Edge. This increases the critical hit damage by 50% and also increases the 20% increase to our critical rate, which is extremely important for making sure that we are consistent with the crit recharge that the Flash Fencer is reliant on to ensure full and consistent evasion all across the battle. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say about the Lapidarist. Super useful class, buffs all over. It is the single best support class in the game. But going over to the Flash Fencer, and this is the star of the show right now. Going over quickly with the gems, empowered combo, you can cancel your attacks, and you're going to be canceling constantly throughout it, so of course the additional 75% is important. In fact, all 3 of these are in the name of increasing damage. So Analyze Weakness is increasing crit damage, and Steel Cleaver increasing your attack. The reason why this is so important is because we need to sacrifice damage for utility when it comes to the accessories, so any additional damage that we can get is always welcome. You're going to be putting out lots and lots of attacks, so you want to make sure that you can get the most bang for your buck when it comes to using your cancelled fusion arts. Now, going over to the skills, quickly going over the Flash Fencer, they're a very solid class. I'm pretty sure anyone that's watching this video has probably trained every character to be level 20 in the Flash Fencer, specifically for capable hands. If you haven't done that already, you definitely should. It is the single best class art in the game. So yeah, capable hands, for people that don't know, this lets you have a full talent charge at the beginning of every battle. This also is very common for use with Noah, simply because you can use the Unlimited Sword at the very beginning of every battle and then kill things instantly with the Lucky 7. The other skills that come into play are First Move Wins. This actually works very well with Fighting Instinct. If you let them inherit the Violent Streak for the Full Metal Jaguar. That is an AoE ability that hits many times and does a fair amount of damage. You can combine the attacks or the effects of Fighting Instinct and First Move Wins to give yourself a sizable damage boost at the beginning. This is extremely useful for clearing out enemies instantaneously, and especially good for climbing the early ranks in the Nopon Arcsage's Gauntlet, which is another one of the reasons why this build can be so effective. And then finally, Critical Strike. I mentioned earlier we have to compromise our damage a little bit in terms of our accessories, so this really does help patch things up a little bit. Giving more critical damage is always welcome. Now, we talked about the Frenzied combo. This is from the Martial Artist. You definitely want to have this because, again, crit recharge, we're trying to pump up our critical rate as best as we can. This gives us the more reliable increase in our cooldowns, and the more cooldowns you have for your Agni and Evasion arts, the more likely you are to survive and just succeed better as a tank. Eye for weak points. This is also very important from the Full Metal Jaguar. You're going to be hitting things a lot, and again, giving yourself as much damage as possible is a must-have. We try to get it wherever we can. Unfortunately, we are limited to only 3 master skills, so we can't really replace this with the ultimate Qigong, but other than that though, this is going to be your go-to. Finally, Protector's Pride requires no explanation, but I'll do it anyway. Combining this with the Fraternal Badge is going to be amazing if anyone that's not a defender is being targeted. You can also see, again, that none of the party members are defenders. We want to keep it that way specifically because we want to have the maximum cooldowns for all of the abilities that the Flash Fencer has. Finally, we're going to talk about the arts. This is a bit of a doozy. Not really much to explain here, but I just want to point out Violent Streak. This is from the Full Metal Jaguar. Even though this doesn't really give us the Brighid cosplay that we wanted, this is very useful for the purposes of Nopon Arcsage, but also for drawing aggro in general. This is very good simply because of the large area of effect that it has, and you're going to be starting off most of your battles with the sequence involving this, which we'll be talking about right now. So, first of all though, we have 3 Agdian classes. The Incursor and the Martial Artist both give evasion that also has critical damage. This is perfect because we want to make sure we can get additional critical ratios as we're doing this, so yeah, that's going to give us even more reliable and more consistent recharges. Wide Slash is the weakest of the 3, simply because it does not have that critical rate. That being said though, this is very useful because unlike Aerial Slash, it does not move you backwards, which is going to be very important. The difference between this class and I think even the Full Metal Jaguar, which also benefits greatly from evasion, is that the Full Metal Jaguar, you don't really need to worry so much about precision and positioning for your character, whereas for the Flash Fencer, you absolutely do need to. And so there are many attacks, namely 2, Aerial Slash and Null Slash. They both move the character backwards. This can be very detrimental if you're trying to cancel your arts, but then you're out of position, so you can't pull them off, and that results in death most likely because you're not doing anything that activates any evasion. Not only that, but when you're fighting against enemies with very awkward hitboxes or very awkward body types, such as the Drake enemies, or even the what's it called, the Gyrinus robots, then yeah, things can get really dicey, especially when you're playing in the Gauntlet where things can kind of damage you in a flash. Other than that though, the Wide Slash, it does move you forward. You definitely want to start things off with this. I want to quickly go over the sequence that I usually do at the beginning of every battle, and it works in essentially every mode. What you want to do is that at the beginning of any fight, you can cancel a single auto attack. The Flash Fencer has 2 auto attacks for the price of 1, but you only really need to cancel the first one and just get the effect of a cancel. Go for a cross impact, then immediately cancel that into a Violent Streak. You're going to draw all the aggro in any battle directly towards yourself, which is exactly what we want. The problem is though, is that you can't cancel directly into an evasion art, so you are wide open for damage unless you just spam an attack without getting the benefits of the cancel. In this case, we want to do this with Wide Slash. It is the weakest of the 3, and also it is not part of the top 2 rows. and it does get you into a little bit better position because it moves you forward. So starts things off with a wide slash, there's no canceling here, but by the time you have done the violent streak cancel, both of these two rows will be fully open, and then you just alternate between the two. For the most part, you'll be alternating between these simply because the cross impact gives you power charge, and then you switch over to the hidden thorn, which does a fair amount of damage as well, and you'll just be looping this over and over again. It's really, really nice. It's really brain dead. It could be a little bit exhausting for some people that don't want to mash too much, but if you're like me and you really, really love canceling arts and getting into the rhythm of things, you get that satisfaction as if you were popping some bubble wrap on your controller. This is a lot of fun, and it's part of the reason why I wanted to make this video in the first place, is that I love my fun and wacky builds. Not necessarily the most viable builds out there for sure, but still very effective in whatever you want to do. If you have a playstyle that wants to be aggressive while also serving as a tank, this is perfect for you, as long as you can get around the fact that you're stuck at melee range the entire time. But yeah, Jackal Claw, Aerial Slash, not really much else to say. You need to have these regardless. Aerial Slash can be a bit of a risky thing to use, simply because it moves you backwards, but if you can cancel directly into a cross impact, this moves you forward, which is very, very good. Hidden Thorn also moves you forward, and that's the reason why we want to emphasize canceling into both of these two fusion arts, so you can stay on your enemy at all times, and then occasionally going for a violent streak to draw in more aggro from other enemies, or just giving yourself a little bit more breathing room if you need an emergency cooldown for evasion purposes. That's really all I need to say in regards to that. The accessories, like I said, we had to compromise damage in order to accommodate for the quality of life, because all three of these are very, very important. First thing is going to be the chaotic memory. Now, this is very, very important because, like I said, you're going to be canceling fusion arts all the time. Like 98% of the time you will be canceling into your fusion arts, which gives you plenty of damage off the bat. But the thing is, though, is that we can't go ahead and replace these with the Saturni rings, even though we would lose out on nearly 500 damage. The thing is, though, is that you find yourself up against enemies that either have the ability to dodge or enemies that have the ability to block attacks. Blocking attacks is extremely detrimental, that you may as well not have used the 40% extra attack power. Meanwhile, if you have the chaotic memory, as long as you get a cancel, you will avoid that blocking altogether, and you will get the full damage, which is still better in this case. Thermo headgear, again, we need to give ourselves as much critical rate as possible. 47% is very good, and that is what the Flash Fencer comes with built in. And then finally, the Fraternal Badge, we've already talked about it. Protector's Pride, Fraternal Badge, super broken, you want it on basically everybody. So yeah, that's pretty much the entire build. It's a lot of fun, very, very spammy if that's what you like to do. Quickly going over to the rest of the team comp, I have two Lapidarists. Even though the critical buff from Beaming Edge does not stack, however, all of the other abilities of the Lapidarist are super useful, particularly when it comes to the Oriole and Resonant Flag spam. Having more opportunities for a Ring of Roses is also really, really good, simply because if we lose one, at least we have some more to fall back on. That is also why I've set Mio to a Troubadour as well. Not necessary, but Talent Art Glittering Melody is always useful to have, and then another Ring of Roses, why not? Having more healers is generally a good idea, which is also why I'm double dipping with Miyabi here. The other thing about this is that Miyabi, whenever she gets KO'd, she refreshes all of the cooldowns of everyone that's still alive. This is going to become very, very helpful. It's not a lifesaver by any means, but it's always nice to have additional insurance that you will always have cooldowns ready. Even if you were to make enough mistakes, if Miyabi ends up dying because of those mistakes, you get a little bit of a safety net here. Now, going to our two attackers, we got ourselves Lance, who is an Ogre. This is the exact same utility build that I did for the Ogre Showcase a while back. Essentially, this is just going to be for the purposes of initiating break, topple, launch combos, which will give us more time to survive. Whenever an enemy is launched, they take more damage and they can't attack back, so obviously we want to go ahead with that. I also gave him Glittering Melody as well, because that's cheeky, but again, if we can have more of those all at once, again, this will help with our survivability. And I want us to also take advantage of the Fury Smash, because this increases the break chance by 45 percentage points, and then adding upon that Accomplish Van Braces. You want to have this just so that your break resistance of your enemies will become almost null and void. And also, I've given him the Memory Locket, give us one more non-healer to do the revives, if ever that happens. When you're playing as Sena as the Flash Fencer, you only care about doing your cancels, and you should be tanking all the damage to begin with. There will be times where AoE attacks, there's nothing you can do to control that, unfortunately. That's just how Xenoblade 3 works. If AoE attacks kill other people, you still have many chances from the rest of your party to get revives, which is exactly what we have here. 4 people, plus the hero, they'll all have a chance of reviving each other, so you can focus on doing your job. Finally, here is Noah. He is our wild card. I already mentioned before, capable hands, unlimited sword, everyone knows about it, but it is just super useful to have. That launch smash damage is extremely useful for whittling down the attacks. The Flash Fencer, even though it is a very powerful damage dealer, it is nothing compared to the Unlimited Sword. Nothing is comparable to it as far as damage output goes, so we definitely want to emphasize that whenever you get lucky with the smash damage, as long as you are maintaining aggro, which you have no problem doing. Normally the Unlimited Sword draws aggro to Noah very easily, but this build that we have is extremely reliable for tanking purposes, despite not being a tank. That's all I can really say. Just give him the damage, that's all. Yeah, there's not really much else to say. His accessories are a pretty standard build: Fraternal Badge, Shackle Ring, just for more obscene amounts of damage. And yeah, that's all I can really say. The wonderful thing about this DLC is that the Flash Fencer, it looks glorious with the Brighid outfit. And honestly, it's part of the reason why I wanted to make this build in the first place. I wanted to have a build that was a bit of a gimmick, but a gimmick that can still work fairly nicely. It's not necessarily going to help you break records by any means, but if you are like me and you love the character of Brighid, you like to play as evasion tanks, this is definitely something that you may wish to consider as well. And it looks fantastic with those dual sabers from the Flash Fencer. It looks amazing. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and demonstrate just how crazy things can get with the cooldowns in this game by fighting against one of the most powerful enemies in the base game. So I'll see you guys there. Okay, so I did say that I was going to fight against the super boss, but I figured, you know what, why not go for challenge mode this time? We're going to fight against the 4 Devas, because this is actually a very effective way of showcasing the power of it. So like I said, I usually like to start things off by doing my cross impact into Violent Streak, and then into the wide slash null slash combination. But then after that, you should have everything queued up and ready to go, and you can only focus on the Hidden Thorn and Cross Impact, because not only is that the best DPS for our efforts, but also it is going to constantly advance Sena forward, so we don't have to worry about being out of position and needing to reposition ourselves, taking any easy hits along the way. So for the most part though, you're going to be alternating between two, like I said, because of the way that Xenoblade 3 is when it comes to balancing. This particular challenge could easily be done just by using the Lucky 7, but I love Brighid a lot, and I love this kind of playstyle of using crit recharge to constantly keep your attacks cancelled, kind of like popping bubble wrap. Okay, we got ourselves a Paralleling with Yuho on the team. I'm going to see if it got the aggro. Perfect. And at the very beginning of the fight, I wanted to make sure that the entire party is focusing so that they don't accidentally pull the aggro from anyone else. This is very important just for the purposes of survivability. We want to make sure that our party members don't take any extra damage. Unfortunately, there is no way for us to prevent them from getting hit by AoE damage, so we just have to live with that when it happens. But for the most part though, we got Noah with a Lucky 7. He's going to do plenty of damage, helping us get through these fights a lot faster with his smash damage. And just like that, we can now focus on Ryuho. Before we do though, I want to get Nazunt, because Nazunt is very annoying. I want to grab some aggro from him. Okay, then we're going to try to focus down Ryoho down as quickly as possible. If you find yourself in a position where your top 2 rows are not finding charges, you want to prioritize trying to get a cancel from a wide slash. The Flash Fencer has technically 2 attacks to each auto attack, but you only need to cancel one of them, so you don't have to worry about the full animation, and the very first hit is quite fast. So it's very, very good in a clutch situation. Okay, so I'm going to focus down Seratinia. So again, a violent streak, and I'm immediately going to try to go for the wide slash immediately for that free invincibility, and go cancel into another loop, and continue the pattern all over again. Lance has been very, very consistent with landing those topples and launches for me. We got ourselves a Daze as well. And our Lapidarists are doing their jobs. Look at all those buffs all across the map. We are looking very, very slick right now. And I got all the aggro focused on me. Rite of Illumination is coming in. This is a very, very easy dodge. Very, very easy dodge when you're playing as the crown jewel of Morardain. I want to do another violent streak simply because it is free aggro that I can use to just to tag the other boss, and then we can keep on going. Okay, so we see that Noah is down. It's okay though, because we have plenty of healers in reserve. And this is where things get a little bit tricky. Because the thing about Nazunt is that he has a tendency to just move around his hitbox wherever he pleases. You can't necessarily land hits. And unfortunately, we are also in a position where we are constantly moving away from him. You want to make sure that we're staying as close to him as possible. And feel free to panic hit your null slash or wide slash to get yourself into good positioning again. Okay, got ourselves a lucky topple and a Daze. This is going to be very beneficial for our damage output, simply because we don't have to worry about him moving out of position so much, or doing anything that makes him invulnerable to damage. That is the worst. I'm going to go ahead and plant myself into this fast recharge wave space over here, this Ring of Roses. And then we got ourselves a topple. This should be curtains on Nazunt. Easily done. All you had to do was just make sure you do the, you just need to ask them to focus on one enemy at a time, and look at that, less than 5 minutes on the 4 Devas. Not bad at all. So, yeah, like I said, even though this might not necessarily be the fastest, I'm pretty sure most people could do it probably under 60 seconds if they were so inclined, but it is nice just to find more avenues, more builds, more ways to go about addressing the combat of Xenoblade Chronicles 3, because they give you so many options. It's such a shame to just narrow yourself down to one, and that's exactly what I want to do when I made this build that you guys watched today. The Flash Fencer and the Brighid outfit, they go so perfectly together. It was a very, very happy coincidence that it works so well with evade tanking in this game, and I hope that you guys try it out yourselves. It's a really, really fun build, and one that I hope you guys try to use as you experiment with all the other ones when you tackle the Nopon Archsage's Gauntlet. Other than that, though, that's all I pretty much want to say. This was a really, really fun build. I hope you guys enjoyed what you saw. I always enjoy trying to make up some new builds along the way, and I wanted to make sure I got this build out because, at the time of recording, we are 2 days away from the release of Octopath Traveler, and I wanted to make sure that I had at least one more build that I have that's near and dear to my heart before we move on to the next thing. At least before DLC Wave 4 comes out. That one's going to be crazy. Hope that you guys look forward to that one too. Other than that though, guys, thank you very, very much, and I will see you guys next time. Take care, everyone.